This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless. Good morning and welcome to the Leadership in Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bonds, and I'm very lucky today to be joined by James, who's Head of Innovation at Aventum Group. James, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Alex. Yeah, I'm great. Thanks. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
No, not at all. Not at all. We got connected by our very good friends at I Love Planes, and they were very keen to have this conversation. So I want to thank them as well, personally, for putting us together. And Aventum's a group I know quite well. I've got two of my very, very oldest friends in insurance who I worked at RSA with a very long time ago. Both work at Aventum, and they say very good things. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. Innovation comes in all shapes and sizes. So really good to hear how you guys are doing it, particularly with the journey you've been on. Phenomenal growth. So, but before we dive into those questions, James, it'd be really good if you could introduce yourself, your role, and for anyone that's been hiding under a rock, who Aventum Group are as well.
Sure. So I've been in technology for about 25 years, probably a bit longer than that now, I would say. Well, I think my earliest role was actually doing some Y2K testing. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
When the clocks ticked over from 1999 into 2000, and we had to make sure all the banking applications and all the airplanes didn't fall out the sky. So that was quite a good introduction to the technology space in financial services. From there, I did a lot of freelancing, and eventually ended up in insurance in 2008. So that was my introduction to insurance. And I remember going into Lloyd's for the first time and sitting down at a box with some underwriters and watching how they do business with brokers. And I was fascinated by the whole thing. Fascinated and also a bit baffled as well by some of those old working practices that I wasn't so used to coming from banking. But it was, really good. And I actually loved that collaborative nature. And I was just fascinated that the whole market was collaborating to work together to ensure these big complex risks. So I worked at a few syndicates and in technology implementations, and then finally came to Aventum around 5 years ago, put down some roots, headed up the change team, and here we are.
There we are. Brilliant. Thank you for that. And I remember that. I remember that journey of coming up to London, and everyone's probably got this memory if they're a similar age, but I couldn't work out why I thought so many people who were traveling and taking their luggage into work, and it's like, no, those are files. That's just how they get about.
It was insane.
Yeah, thankfully we've come a little way. So talk to us about Aventum. Who are Aventum, and what do you look after within it? Head of Innovation. What does that mean within the Aventum Group? Let's set the picture with Aventum first.
Okay, so Aventum is a specialist insurance group in the London market. Also operates globally as well. David Behrman set up the company with his family, maybe nearly coming up for 30 years ago, I think. And back then it was just a small operation, 2 or 3 people, yellow pages and a telephone, and that's how they kind of operated. Grew over time, became a Lloyd's broker, partnered with some other insurance people to set up various MGAs, created Rockstone, which is the one that most people know. Rockstone's our award-winning MGA platform, and back then they had a collection of other MGAs and insurance businesses, broking businesses, and they were consolidated shortly after I joined. So we were still direct insurance back then, consolidated under the Aventum banner back probably about 4.5 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So most of our MGAs are now under the Rockstone banner, and the broking side of the business trades under the name of Concilium.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. So what within that, I think there'll be a big question is that, MGA, broker, why do we need an innovation team within it? What does the innovation team do? Because not all sizes and shapes of insurance businesses at all manage to make kind of innovation work internally. Yeah, so set the stall out. What do you and your team do? What are you responsible for?
Sure. So within Aventum, so I see in the kind of central services as part of tech. So I report to the CTO. So we're primarily tech focused innovation, and my remit, the main name of our lab is to do heavy lifting R&D for our tech department, which is building our award-winning technology. So our insurance platform that is used by our broking teams, underwriting teams, ops teams, etc. And so we spend a lot of time experimenting, coming up with experiments to test what technology we can find to overcome various different business challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really fun role. Lots going on, very fast paced, and we're all about the learning of that. And then we hand over the learnings to our tech squads who are building those capabilities within Atomics.
How does what do you think you're doing that's making kind of innovation more than just a buzzword? Is it the structure? Is it budget? Because these are the things that people seem to get wrong. Is like innovation's great, but if you don't give a budget, it strangles it. Sometimes the structure's wrong in that you're kind of not plugged in. Why are you managing to get it right? What do you think kind of makes that work?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there. So first of all, it's our ring fence nature. So before I did the innovation role, before I took this role on, I was head of change, and we always wanted to do more experimentation, more innovation projects, but we could never dedicate any time to it because we were continually, particularly somewhere like Aventum, where it's really fast-paced and entrepreneurial, always new opportunities coming up, always new projects, or different regulatory changes, data projects, you name it, they're coming thick and fast. And that means you can't give the headspace to the innovation that you need to. So we're fortunate that we're able to set up a ring fence team with primary focus of learning about these new technologies and finding applications for them in the business.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I mean, that's always been one of my frustrations when I've had, particularly if I've had those early days of like tech entrepreneurs into the insurance space, insurtech space, being like, insurers don't know what they're like, don't know why they're so far behind, etc. And I was going, no one knows more that how far behind insurance is than the people running those tech teams. Doesn't mean they've got any bandwidth to do anything about it, and also doesn't necessarily mean they've even got the right skill sets internally, because maintaining status quo is a challenge enough, let alone as you would know in a change role, driving change. So it's been quite frustrating from that. I wanted to kind of ask you as well that there's a lot of building of tech within Aventum and in your team. And something you and I talked about before, like there'll be a very big push for some people to say, well, why do you need to build your own team? Isn't it better to kind of get something off shelf, build that? So where do you sit on the buy versus build debate? Because obviously we're kind of building things. So it must be a question you've had to answer. Why don't we just go out and buy this rather than build it? So we wanted to get your thoughts on why you've gone down the route that you have.
Yeah, this is a really good question, and one that a lot of businesses grapple with in our industry. And we've chosen a path which very few people go down. And I think there's probably a couple of parts to that. The first is that the main reason we wanted to do that is we had some of the the more off-the-shelf type products, software products to support the business, and off-the-shelf tools, and ones that you can often customize to a degree with some help from the vendors or the suppliers. But often the time taken to fit those off-the-shelf platforms into our requirements, actually, that you don't quite end up with something that you would have done if you'd have done a bespoke build, and actually still spend quite a lot of time and effort and money in doing that configuration or customization. And then you have these platforms or different tools that you've got from different vendors, and then you need to stitch them together in order to build up a complete picture. So they don't talk to each other. You can't get a single source of truth. They're all kind of got their own variation of it. So Aventum is also, the way we do things can be quite complex as well. We've got very unique requirements for our really complex businesses that we operate. So it made more sense for us to design our own platform, and so what we've done is actually created a suite of applications that are tightly linked and talk to each other very seamlessly, so that if you're working in one part of the platform in one role, you can seamlessly access the data from another role. But obviously there's a lot of security and architectural designs going in to make sure we've got the right Chinese walls and segregation of data and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really fair point as well, because I think, there's been lots of conversations about making it really simple. Even in my world, we had a system in our business, and it was so configurable that we needed to get a developer in to configure it. And I was like, well, that kind of defeats the object of it being fit for purpose, like off the shelf, because it was so complex that, yes, it can do all these things, but again, it's this kind of like time. So if we were going to invest that much time and effort, then why don't we, either for us, it was like, let's get a simpler system or a different system that's more strict in how that we operate. But then that presents another problem. And I was just away, in Ireland actually with a colleague who used to run an MGA. One of the things we were talking about is that some of the structures from the technology standpoint dictates how you have to operate, and you have to make that decision early. And then but it allows very little room for error or change. So you can't change how you operate. And one of the benefits, obviously, is you can make it build for you. Which is a key differentiator as well, because it has been award winning. How much of that is seen by people? What I was thinking when you won these awards, I was like, well, who gets to see this tech? Because it's for you, like it's uniquely for Aventum. So is that client partners, or how are the outside getting to see it, or do you have to kind of demo it in front of people? I was kind of intrigued at how you can win an award for an internally built system.
Sure. So some of the components are externally facing, and but there is a lot of the demo type stuff too. So, but we're not demoing anything we've not built either. It's fundamentally working. We've got, I think, 12 different software products in one platform. It's very, very exciting to say you've been able to deliver that in certainly the initial capabilities in the first 18 months. So that's actually quite astounding to be able to say we've done that. So we're really proud of it. Some of the capabilities are really out there as well with anything that is available to buy, and we probably say it exceeds many of the ones you can buy too. So we're really happy with it. Yeah,
amazing. Let's talk about that process then. How do you take something from proof of concept and talk to us in two ways? Like how does it come into fruition as an idea, and then how do you how does it work within the innovation team around building it? But like, how do you take something from that proof of concept to something that is one of the apps that's like embedded across the business? What's that process like?
Lab, we have some ideas and challenges that we had from when I was head of change, and I kept a list of everything we wanted to do, but we couldn't do because we didn't have the time. So I had a whole bunch of those. Then we've got challenges that we know we need to develop capabilities for in our Atomics platform. And then we get also ideas directly from the business as well. Could you help us with this? How do we do that? And so we've got kind of those three roads. And actually we run some as part of our group responsibility. We also run some business initiatives to solicit ideas from the business, provide platforms for them to surface their ideas and come and work with us to test them out. So perhaps we'll come back to that in a sec. But in terms of going from that POC stage, we often will do some experiments. We narrow down the scope so that we will really try hard to prove very specific things and see if we can overcome those challenges with particular technologies, be that AI, which is we created the lab at a perfect time when Gen AI kind of exploded. And so we've been able to achieve a lot of large language models, but we don't only work with those. We've done some GIS mapping and used many other different types of technology in the lab. We've got a great set of people who are working with me, and they're able to turn their hand to anything. And we will try and prove something in the shortest possible time. So we don't worry about building a really fancy UI or one that's got all the proper we don't use guardrails. We don't actually do any proper QA testing like you would if you're building something for release. We'll build it as quickly as possible just to prove the specifics. Like, in theory, could we do this? And then we package up all the learnings, hand that over to the tech teams. And if it's accepted onto the roadmap for one of those platforms, one of our software products, then eventually it gets delivered by one of those squads. And my team works very closely with those so that they've got the learnings and all of the hand holding they need to really deliver rapidly what they're setting out to achieve. So it means we've done a lot of the heavy lifting of that R&D for them, so they don't have to slow down and work out the best way to do something now. They just pick it up and run with it and build it into our Atomics architecture.
Great. Yeah, that makes smart way of doing things. But yeah, you kind of you prompted me for a question that I think is really important to this space, like the innovation space, is that I always when I think about it, there's two sort of examples I always think about. Was there's famously when someone was trying to save money on like building matchboxes, and then originally matchboxes only could be struck on both sides, and then it was like, well, why don't we only need one strike plate, and saved a load of money. And then the other one from my world was that an ex-partner worked in a PR firm, and they were trying to do the PR for the new Volkswagen Touareg. And if anyone doesn't know, it was a SUV and it was a 4x4, and it was incredibly powerful. And the thing they'd worked out is that theoretically it could pull a jumbo jet on its own. And they were trying to think of some PR launch event, and it was just someone from reception went, well, why don't we just get it to pull a plane? Which seems obvious now, but it was like then the thing, and it was like, well, the ideas from a business perspective can come from anywhere. So how do you set those kind of facilitate that sort of environment, those initiatives, and what do they look like? Are they sort of competitions? Are they kind of like roundtables? Yeah, how do you get ideas from the business from non-tech people?
So I think we've been quite successful at this. So we've got a flagship innovation initiative called the Bear Cave, which is sounds a little bit like Dragon's Den, and I guess it is. It's a Dragon's Den meets The Apprentice kind of challenge where people from the business submit their ideas, and then there's an initial process. We pick the best ones, and then those finalists get to work with my team, and we've also put them with other people in the business, link them up if they need some help to create a pitch, and then they take the pitch into the Bear Cave, pitch it to David Behrman and a small panel of judges, and we pick the best one, and then we we fund them to ensure that they get delivered. So we've had some good success with that. That's been a lot of fun. Get some great engagement, great ideas from that. That's our biggest one, and then we run other initiatives as well throughout the year. So I recently did a vibe coding challenge with the business too. So showed them how to create an arcade game from scratch using AI. And so one of the great things about AI is that we've been democratization of creating apps and games and coding. So what I wanted to do is use that as a vehicle for saying it's not just for looking at your documents. You can do so much more with this. And I wanted to open up their eyes to what is possible. So we ran a lunch and learn, and then set them a challenge to send me your AI coded games by the end of the next week. And we got some fantastic ideas. Actually, I think the winner from that was not from tech. It was just someone in the business who just used their imagination and what they'd learned to come up with something. And then since then, we've had bear cave ideas that were illustrated using vibe coding that people would never have been able to do that if we'd not run those sessions. So it's about kind of just maintaining that, doing those things throughout the year that maintain that curiosity from people and hopefully ignite some sparks inside some of our business colleagues.
I think that's really important. I think people like to do these things in isolation, and then there's not enough consistent kind of prods and different opportunities, and people need some encouragement, don't they? And one of the things I would imagine is important, and I wonder to just get your thoughts on this, but I'm assuming that one of the things that's allowed you to be successful has been because people can see that ideas that came from the business have been implemented across the business.
I'd totally agree with that. Our first bear cave winner, so from season 1, was an idea that came from the business. It was tested in the lab with my team. We built a working POC in a couple of days. They were then able to use that in the pitch to the judges, illustrate their point really well. And then my team worked for a couple of months to refine the approach so that it was like a production ready approach. And then we actually handed that off to one of the tech squads and they built it. And so less than 6 months later, there's an actual capability that came from the business that had then been released into production. And that's actually being used across multiple classes now. So it's fantastic. People can actually see there's a tangible benefit to not only the business, but also them putting their time in. And look, we make it a lot of fun too. So because we understand that people are really busy doing their day jobs. So you have to give them a bit of encouragement, make it fun for them. Also give them permission to experiment and try these innovations. And that's really important. Otherwise they just think, I'm too busy. I'd love to get involved in this, but I just can't do it. I'm too busy.
Yeah. No, I think giving people permission and making that part of their day. The only businesses that I've seen that have done innovation well it's winning hearts and minds. It's getting people engaged, but the only way you can do that is, I think where people fail is that lack of delivery. And do you think that's helped by the structure of Aventum? Because it's famously like it's now 100% employee owned, right? Does that play a part? Do you think?
Yeah, it does. Twofold, really. So the senior leadership team, so David and the rest of the board, they really buy into that innovation culture. And but we wouldn't be doing Atomics if it wasn't, if we had committee after committee had to sign these things off. I mean, it'd be quite difficult. So just the fact that we have the people from the very top really buy into what we can achieve and we want to forge our own path is something that David often says, and we want to do things our own way.
Yeah.
So that enables us to take on these big ambitious projects where other people might they might have those come up in front of the board and then they might get vetoed. We don't really have that kind of problem. And then where we have it's 100% employee owned, as you say, we think that leads everyone to want to push the boundaries even further, because they can see what we have achieved so far, and they want to be part of how we take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I do think it's the advantage that independent businesses have. I mean, we see this all the time, and we work specifically with insurtech clients, the speed at which they can do things. But it's basically what it comes down to is being independently owned, and there isn't huge committees to kind of go for sign off. And then you see this as some of our clients have scaled to be like later stage, they start to get to like 1,000 employees. There is just that friction of business friction of decision making. So yeah, hugely important. We're basically at time, so I don't want to overrun, but like I always want to kind of leave it with a look to the future. So you've obviously done a lot, achieved a lot so far. You might not be able to tell us what's exactly on the roadmap, James, because I'm sure it's like proprietary info. But if there is anything you can share, what we can expect to see from your team in the next kind of like 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, great question. No, we've got loads of exciting things going on. We're getting more this year. I want to spend a bit more time with the business, so helping them come up with more great use cases for us, because I think there is, now that AI capabilities are out there, it's people are even more empowered to take things into their own hands. So I want to support them in those initiatives, with my team also helping them to ensure that what they do is safe and responsible, but also hooking it into the central tech infrastructure as well. That's going to be really exciting. And then, like a lot of people are exploring in my kind of space, agents are all the rage at the moment. We've done some really cool things already, and we're going to be pushing the boundaries of what's achievable with agentic AI going forward.
Yeah. I've got an agentic AI coach guy at the moment who's basically telling me how to pull my business apart, and annoyingly, I've realised that I'm going to have to get learning and get on board, and but it's an exciting part of the journey.
Give us a shout. I'd love to hear what you guys are up to at some point then.
Yeah. Some of it's quite clever, and some of it's more relevant to you than I would like to admit publicly. So when I hit stop recording, I might tell you a bit more. But James, thank you for being patient with me. We've been trying to get this in the diary for a long time, so really appreciate you taking the time, and super excited to hear what Aventum are up to. So thanks for being a guest on the podcast.
Thanks, Alex. It was worth the wait. Cheers for the call.
Thank you.